All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Cougar Mountain webinar today for the Denali Payroll overview. That's what we'll be covering today. Basically, we're going to just give a general overview with Denali Payroll, with the new current version of Denali Payroll that we have available now, and how it can help you keep track and manage your payroll processing and your accounting for the payroll in a nice, easy, and secure way for your accounting system. My name is Jeremy Beislein. I am a trainer here at Cougar Mountain Software, and so I will be your presenter today here on today's webinar. We ask that if you have any discussion that you want to make comments or have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. We're going to try to keep everyone muted through this because we've got a lot to cover today. And just put your questions or comments in the chat, and at the end of the webinar, I'll go through and answer as many questions as I can with the time remaining. Any additional questions I don't get to, we will post the answers on the website with the recorded webinar. So make sure you check back on the website as well. We're going to be talking about just the general overview and features in Denali Payroll, some general payroll principles and overviews to begin with. And then we'll get into the specific details of Denali Payroll. We'll go over the department codes, which is where the expenses are recorded for your Denali Payroll. The payroll taxes, benefits, deductions, and other payroll items, paid vacation and paid time off tracking in Denali Payroll, employee setup and maintenance, time tracking integration options, and then the Denali Payroll processing. And then at the end, we'll answer your questions that we have, as many as we can there, and wrap up, and we'll be able to get it cleared up there. We're going to try to get this all done within about a half hour. That's how much time we have today, so there's a lot to cover. So here we go. All right, so most of you who do payroll, you know payroll can be very complicated. You've got several different expense line items for each payroll run or each payroll paycheck you process. You've got your wages expense, your company tax expenses for the payroll, any benefits expenses, several different items. Then you've got to track your payroll liabilities. So it's not just a matter of writing out a simple check where on the accounting system you credit the bank account and debit your payroll expense. You've got credits going to payroll liabilities, debits going to other expense accounts. It's all over the place. It can be very complicated and very time consuming trying to figure it all out. But with Denali, we take care of all that for you. So you basically just set up your payroll system in the Denali Payroll module, and every time you process payroll, it is almost as simple as just writing out a check. You put in the employee's time, unless that's imported, which we'll go over. It makes it even easier, and basically you just process those checks, print them out, post them through, and all of your accounting is done automatically for you in a nice, easy system way. A nice, easy system for you. So let's talk about that. Let's go into our Denali Payroll here, and we will go over the different options that we have. In Denali, you've got your general preferences and general features on how you want the system to be set up. That's done under your module preferences here. But to get to the details of how you expense out, and this is for your accounting department and for today's accountants, how you expense out your Denali Payroll expenses, that is handled in the department code setup in Denali Payroll. What's great about Denali Payroll is you can set up as many department codes that you feel you need to have to cross over the different general ledger expense accounts as needed. You can also combine multiple departments to the same expense account if needed. That's not a problem. In our system here, we've got two payroll expense accounts set up in our general ledger, a 6000 account and a 6010 account. But we've got three departments all being expensed in 6010, but we still need to track those payroll items separately by department. So that's no problem. You can do that in Denali. We have the other two payroll departments being tracked in our 6000 account. So when you go into your department setup, you can also separate out, if needed, your different tax expense accounts. In this case, our account 6060 is our tax expenses. Some people like to separate out the unemployment into a separate expense account, so you can do that as well. And to get to your expense accounts, if you have the Denali General Ledger module, you can simply double-click to bring up your list of accounts and select which account you need to put that expense in from your chart of accounts in General Ledger. your wage expense accounts. There's our 6,000. You can separate that out by regular pay, overtime pay, or the paid time off, vacation, sick leave, and so forth. And you can separate those out as much as you need, or just put all of those regular wage expenses into the same account. You can also designate which benefit expense accounts for this department you need to set up for the different benefits you have for your company. All right, so that's your department codes. That's where you track the expense side of the payroll. Your tax codes is where you will track the taxes. What's great about Denali is the payroll tax system in Denali is automated for you, so there's not a lot of manual tax calculations and figuring that you have to put into it. Basically, with the tax codes, you simply download the tax code that you need for your organization. Denali does come pre-installed with the federal tax code and the states that you need, and you can add additional states anytime that you need to add those. Or, of course, with Denali, like everything else, it is highly customizable, so you can create your own custom tax codes as needed. We do have the federal tax code set up here, so I'll just bring that up real quick. And right here you designate which tax vendor you pay the taxes to for the different tax types on this tax code. Now, our federal tax code, we have withholding tax, we have Social Security and Medicare tax for the employee, Social Security and Medicare for the employer, and then your unemployment tax on the federal tax code, that is your 940 tax. Of course, for federal, our vendor is the same tax vendor, the IRS or the U.S. Treasury. We have it set up in our Denali accounts payable as the 941 tax deposit, but we separate out the 940 tax in a separate vendor as the 940 tax deposit. Now, the vendor you put in is only applicable if you have the Denali accounts payable module and you have payroll integrated with accounts payable, so that your payroll liabilities will automatically post to accounts payable for you when you run payroll. Then you simply go into the accounts payable module and pay those liabilities when you're paying those payroll taxes. Now, the withholding tax does not have a percentage or a cutoff or threshold amount. And the reason for that is because the withholding tax is set up under a withholding tax table. So to look at that, we just switch over to our withholding table. And these are our different tax brackets and the tax rate for the withholding table. And those of you who are familiar with payroll taxes, you will recognize this table as being the same table you see when you look in the Circular E, I believe it is, for the payroll taxes from the IRS. You'll see the same withholding table with the same numbers that you see here in Denali. So you know that by comparing this with that IRS publication, your taxes are being calculated correctly. You also have a married withholding table, which you'll see is going to show separately a different amount for your different tax brackets. If the employee is married and they have marked on their W-4 the married box, I believe it's in box 3 or 4 on the W-4 that they marked that. Now, what's great about Denali is these tax tables change from time to time. Of course, we all know the federal tax table changes once a year, right at the end of December, in preparation for the new year. So in Denali Payroll, to get the most recent tax table, you don't have to go in and edit these numbers manually. You can, if you pull up your Circular E and punch in these numbers manually, that is an option. Or you just simply click on the tax update and you just run your tax update for the federal tax code right here. And we click update, and it downloads that update from the internet instantly, and it automatically takes care of that. Now, it's giving me a locking error because I have opened the tax code to edit it, so I'm going to cancel out of there. Now I can go ahead and update that. If I'm manually editing the tax code at the time I try to update, it says, we can't update that because you're already in that tax table. So now that we've closed out of it, it goes ahead and updates for us. The update is now complete. Very simple system for updating your tax tables. In our demo company here, we have many state tax codes as well, as you can see. Most Denali users will only have 1 or 2 state tax codes to go along with their federal tax code. But you can have as many as you need, as you can see here. And that's great for multi-state payroll. Then you got the other payroll options. that you're going to run. Your benefits and deduction codes, these are your other payroll items. This is where you set up the different items that you're going to need to calculate the paychecks in addition to their regular pay. The benefits, those are company paid benefits on behalf of the employee, such as healthcare benefits or a matching bonus to the 401k retirement plan or any pension plans that the company pays into on behalf of the employee. Deductions are employee paid items, such as the health insurance premium for the health plan that you may be charging the employee, and you take that premium out of their check. Most companies will do a portion of the health care benefits, a portion of that is deducted out of the employee's check, so you would set up a deduction for that. Garnishments are another type of deduction, but they have additional features, such as the minimum wage exemption and the disposable wage features that you can set up specifically for your area. Tips are a way to record for the service industry. Employees who receive tips, you can set up the tip code that will add that to their gross pay on their tax forms and their recorded income that is processed through payroll, but it does not add it to the dollar amount on the paycheck itself, since they receive their tips separately. Additions, on the other hand, will add to the dollar amount on the paycheck. Additions are very handy for paying out bonuses or commissions if you want to set that up under an addition code, or maybe even reimbursed expenses for your employees. You can also, let's bring up some of our benefits or deductions here that we have. So we have right here a 125H deduction. This is for the 125 flex spending account for the health plan. Some employees will set it up so that they have a portion of their paycheck withheld and goes into a special flex account to pay medical expenses, which based on the IRS rules, you can set that up, and then those funds are available to that employee to pay their medical and dental expenses as needed. Now, this is a tax-free deduction, or what's known as a pre-tax deduction. So, of course, Denali accounts for that with the shelter code. You can set up shelter codes to calculate this deduction prior to calculating the taxes on the gross pay. And here's the shelter code options here. Denali also has a great feature for calculating paid vacation and paid time off. You can set that up to where the system automatically accrues the paid vacation based on the pay period. In this case, we have a paid vacation code set up to accrue 3.0769 hours for every pay period for an employee when they get paid a paycheck. This will automatically add this many hours to their accrued paid vacation hours that they have accrued. And then if they use those hours, it will deduct what they have accrued from the accrued amount. So it's a great way to track your paid vacation, paid time off. You can also track it by the number of hours they work rather than just the same amount for every period. You can also apply paid vacations on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis, rather than have the system automatically apply it with each paycheck. You've got your status codes available. This allows you to set up different statuses for your employees as well, and we'll talk about that in the employee setup. So let's talk about employee setup. This is where you go in and set up your employee information for your employees. And this is what it's all about in Denali. Putting in all of the information in the initial setup will save you a lot of time when you go to process your payroll every time it comes time for payroll processing, every payday. The more information you put in the setup, the less time you're going to have to repeat the processing of the payroll when you actually process checks. So, for example, here we have one employee here, John Archer. I'm going to click Edit so we can see his information easier there. In the general information for the employee, you put in the general information such as their name, address, phone number, so forth, their dates for birthday, hire date, so forth. Payment information over here, you can select whether their default pay type is hourly or salary pay. The pay frequency is important because that also determines how Denali will calculate the payroll taxes. So it's important that you select the correct pay frequency. How often does this employee get paid? You can set this independently for each employee as needed. You can put some additional information regarding their last raise and check location and site location if needed. And down here in this section is just a snapshot of the last check this employee received. Check number, check date, and the net check amount. The year-to-date summary tab for your employee shows a detailed history of each paycheck that the employee has received in the current payroll year. With at the bottom, you have your totals, their total taxable wages for federal taxes, for Social Security, and for Medicare. Then their taxes withheld for federal, with Social Security withheld, and Medicare withheld. And if you look at this, this corresponds to boxes 1 through 6 on the W-4 form. So that makes it easy to read the totals for the entire year in a snapshot view. And it's year to date, in case we're not done with the year yet. So. But right here is where all the magic happens in Denali Payroll, is under the pay rate and taxes. This is where you put in the employee's pay rate, their pay type, you code it to the specific department, and again, this is your expense accounts in general ledger, your department code. So you can have this employee's pay be expensed out on a specific expense account, or the different expense accounts as set up in the department code based on what this employee does for your business. What's great about Denali is you can set this up with multiple pay rates. I've got one here with 3 different pay rates. As you can see, our employee Sabrina here, she has 3 different functions with our company, and whenever she's working in the administration, we need her payroll expense to go to the administration department. In sales, it goes to sales, and in the production department, we'll go to production. We can also establish different pay rates for the different functions they do at a different hourly rate here. You can also set up multi-state payroll. Set up additional pay rates for the different states if you have employees that are working in multiple states and they need to be taxed for those multiple states. Now this employee only has 1 state, so we're okay with that, so all of her pay rates are being coded to the same state. At the bottom is the tax information. This is where you put in the tax codes for the payroll taxes for the employee. You'll have the federal tax code for all employees working in the United States, and then you'll have the various state tax codes for employees working in the different states in your organization as needed. You put in the W-4 information here. This is line 5 on their W-4, and over here is line 6 on their W-4 if they want additional withholding. Then you put in your benefit deductions for the employee. These are your different benefits you offer the employee, 401k company match, health insurance benefit, and the deductions that the employee pays for those options, 401k, and then health insurance premium deduction. We also have on this employee a commission addition code. So this will add to their gross pay for commissions that this employee gets paid. I'm going to jump back to pay rates for just a moment here. One of the things that you can do in Denali is you can put the number of hours that the employee works on a regular basis for each pay period in each department they work in. And by doing this in the setup, it saves you the time of putting those hours in when entering payroll. So it gives you easier setup and easier payroll processing. So if you have employees that work the same number of hours every payroll, every pay period, or usually every pay period they work that number of hours, you can go ahead and put those in as default hours that they work. And then when you process their payroll, you only have to put in their hours if they don't work their regular default hours. You just go in and change it to the correct hours that they work. Otherwise, it's already done when you process payroll. You also set up their leave here for their paid vacation, paid sick leave, paid time off, and Denali will automatically track how much leave they have accrued and how much they have remaining that they can use if they need to take time off. Denali is also fully capable of direct deposit functions. Let's see if I can find an employee with a direct deposit set up here. There we go. So in the direct deposit setup, our Mr. Eastman here, he has 2 bank accounts he wants his paycheck deposited to. He wants 80% of it to go to his checking account and 20% to go to his savings account. So you can split up the paycheck across as many accounts as you need to for each employee. You can also split it up so that they only have a portion of it going into their bank account and the rest of it being printed out on a paper check if you need. You can add notes to the employee record and attachments. Attachments is great if you need to add employee applications or a copy of their W-4 form or any other forms that they may need as part of their employee record. If those files are saved on your computer somewhere, you can attach those files here to the employee record, and it gives you a nice, neat location where everything is attached, and you can bring those up anytime. All right, Denali also has some great time tracking features that they're not directly included in Denali, but they are a part of other third-party applications, such as the T-Sheets application. We have a direct partnership with them. T-Sheets is an online time clock and time tracking system for your organization that your employees can use to clock in and out of when they come to work and go home at the end of the day. And the T-Sheets will track how many hours they work each day based on the time that they clock in and out. And then you can come in here into Denali Payroll, and you just import those units directly from T-Sheets into Denali Payroll right before you run the payroll on payday. And all of the hours that T-Sheets has tracked during that pay period for each employee will automatically be imported to your payroll run, and then you don't have to enter those hours in manually. You can also set up a universal bridge import from other time clock systems, and then you can import those hours from those systems as well. You can also track daily units on a daily basis by just entering those units in manually if needed. And then you can print reports or else clear out the daily units of what was either entered or imported if needed. So once your daily units are imported, now here comes payday. So we're going to process payroll here. The payroll processing in Denali has been simplified, so it's a much easier system than what we used to have in our older systems. We've streamlined it. We've set up a nice, neat, single entry window to enter everyone's payroll in one simple central location here. So when you're doing your payroll processing, you just put in the payroll information at the top for this payroll run. Then in this middle section, you put in who is it we're going to pay. We're going to pay all employees based on pay type, or are we only going to pay hourly employees or salaried employees, or only employees that have both a combined hourly and salaried pay rate? If we do all, it does all employees based on pay type. You can also select which employees you're paying here by selecting individual employees or a range of employees by putting in the start to end values here for the employee. Or you can pay by department as set up in your department codes. If you leave these fields blank, then that's going to pay all active employees in the system. Now remember, we've got our box checked here to include daily units. So if we've imported our daily units from T-Sheets or another system, by having that box checked, it automatically includes those daily units in this payroll run. It will also include the default units if there were no units imported for an employee. The default units is set up in the employee setup, like I was showing you a few moments ago. Once we figured out who we're paying, we've got our payroll information, we just go ahead and add those payroll checks to the grid. So now each line is a paycheck. And as you can see, if the units were imported or if they were set up as defaults, our time is already entered. It's done. So for our first employee, this employee worked 80 hours this pay period. The gross pay is already calculated based on their pay rate. Deductions are calculated. Taxes are automatically calculated on the fly based on the tax table set up for this employee. And then you have the net paid for this employee calculated for you. So just by clicking this one button here, we have completed our payroll process for the most part. However, we do have an issue that, as you can see, employee 4 here, Mrs. Hanson or Miss Hanson, she does not have any hours on this paycheck. We don't have any default hours put in, and we didn't import any hours. So the reason we don't have any hours is because perhaps this employee doesn't work the same hours every week. They're always working different hours. So we don't want to put in default hours for this employee because we have to enter them in manually anyway. So by having 0 hours, Denali recognizes that, and it highlights this field in yellow to say we've got a potential problem here. We have an employee that doesn't have any hours that we need to put hours in for. Over here on the net pay, that's highlighted in red because we cannot have a negative net pay. The reason it's negative is because we have no gross pay, but we have a deduction automatically calculated. So we have a negative net pay, and that's not allowed. So it's red. We got to fix that. And the way we fix that is we just put in the hours that she worked. Let's say she worked 72.5 hours this pay period. So we click Edit. It pops up the different categories of where we want to put those hours, either regular, overtime, or paid time off, or any other information we need to put on this paycheck. And we just pop in the hours real quick, click Done, and bam. This paycheck is automatically calculated on the fly, including the taxes and then our net pay. Now our yellow goes away and our red goes away because there are no other problems with this paycheck. All of our other employees, the hours were already imported or entered in by defaults. So if we need to change an employee, such as maybe Mr. Riker here works 80 hours normally, but this week he worked 87 hours. He got 7 hours of overtime. So, well, unfortunately, he's a salaried employee, so we would just have to put his 7 hours under regular units here for PTO calculation. So let's find an hourly employee here. There's one. So let's say Mr. Scott here worked 87 hours, and he's got his regular 80 hours in, but he worked 7 hours overtime. So let's go ahead and pay him his 7 hours of overtime at the overtime rate here. And we can go ahead and click Done, and now he's got 87 hours. The 7 hours were added to his overtime pay, so it's calculated at the higher rate. The net or the gross pay and taxes are automatically recalculated with the additional pay information added, and so that updates the net pay as well. If there are any deductions that are based on gross pay or hours worked, those will also be calculated as well. Any benefits or deductions on that. At the bottom, you see a summary total of each column, total hours, total gross pay, total deductions, total taxes, and total net pay, to give you a snapshot view of the payroll. But as you can see, just by clicking this one button, you could potentially be done with your payroll entry at that point. It pops all of your payroll information here, and there it is. If we have an employee that we don't want to pay, they're listed as active, so their information was popped in. But let's say this employee didn't work at all this pay period. Mr. Paris did not work at all. He didn't receive any paid time off. We just need to not pay him with this payroll run. We can simply delete this paycheck out of the current batch, and it's now gone. And all of the totals are automatically updated with that. So if everything looks good on all your paychecks at this point, it's pretty much done. All we have left to do is to print out our reports, print our checks, process direct deposits, and then post everything. And Denali, you follow a step system for that to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this for now. We started here with our first step. That's most of the work. Everything else is just printing checks, reports, and posting. And we just follow our steps to go to the next step for our reports. This is our edit report. This is a detailed report of everything in the current payroll batch, with the payroll totals at the end of the report. Then we would print our checks, print check register, print our pre-posting reports, which is our benefits, deductions, additions, garnishments, anything else other than regular payroll items. We print our EFTPS report. That report is your 941 taxes, so that you can log into your EFTPS.gov system and pay your 941 payroll taxes based on the numbers on this report. It gives you the totals in a nice, neat report format. Generate direct deposits, and then post everything. So here we are. We started with this step. We've got our information already entered in as we need it. So now that we've completed this first step, we just simply click Next, and it takes us here to our next step. This is our edit report, our next step. Once we've run the edit report, we click Next, and now we're ready to print our paychecks. So I'm going to go ahead and run the print paychecks, because you cannot post payroll unless you've either printed checks or you've gone in the first step and assigned a check number to every check. But by printing checks, Denali automatically assigns the check number starting with the first one you put here. So therefore, if we run the paychecks here, this will go ahead and print out all paychecks in the current payroll batch, and it will assign those check numbers for us so that we can go ahead and post. Okay, check processing is now complete. We have now printed our checks. At this point, you would go over to your printer and your checks would be there. But what I did is I said, let's just save it as a PDF file. So I'm going to cancel that. So now we're going to go to our check register. Now what's great about Denali is the check register is an optional report that you can run so that you can take that report and send it off to the bookkeeper or the accountant that's managing the bank account. Or if you have Denali's bank reconciliation module, the bank rec will manage the account for you, all of your bank accounts for you, and so therefore this check register report is not really needed. I mean, you can print it if you want, but all of your checks will automatically post to the bank reconciliation module for you if you have that module installed as well. So once we've run our check register, now here's our pre-posting reports. All right, we're running short on time, I just was informed, so I'm going to brush through this real quick. The pre-posting reports, our EFTPS report, then we process our direct deposit. You select what date the direct deposit goes in, and then we post our payroll. And when you post, we go ahead and we get our posting done. We get our posting reports for all of the different modules, and then everything posts through correctly to the current payroll system. If you have bank rec, the checks will post to bank rec. If you have Denali's accounts payable, your payroll liabilities will post to accounts payable. And then, of course, if you have Denali's general ledger, all of your debits and credits will post through to the general ledger. And now here's all of our posting reports that we can go ahead and run those. I'm going to go ahead and cancel those because we are on time, short on time. Talking about the taxes real quick, Denali also is included with the Denali payroll is the Atrix tax processing. So you can go ahead and process your quarterly tax reports. Your taxes are made real easy in that regard. You just select which tax report you want to process, select which quarter it's for, and when you click on the display, it brings up the actual form on the screen with all the numbers already calculated for you on the report. You even have the option to e-file those reports as well. And what's great about Atrix is you can use Atrix to also process your W-2s at the end of the year for your employees. And Atrix also is included for every state tax form as well. All of your state quarterlies, state year-end reconciliation reports, and your state unemployment filings are all included with the Atrix application. And as you can see, the numbers are automatically imported for you from Denali. So the report is pretty much done at this point. There's a couple of fields you have to put in, which are highlighted in red. And when you fill in that information, it will automatically process the correct information for you on your taxes. The Schedule B is also included on the 941 if you're a semi-weekly depositor. All right. Okay, and Denali Payroll also has several payroll reports that you can run that are specific payroll reports, such as employee history, leave codes, project codes, the different options that you have in Denali as well. Good question here is how do you handle work comp? With Denali Payroll, you can actually set up a benefit code for that. So that would be a great way to handle your work comp pay. And you just base it on the number of hours the employee works with so much per hour that's calculated for work comp based on the employee's classification. So that would be a great way to handle your work comp pay. Oh, here's a good question from Ada. How do you correct a paycheck that was posted to the wrong department code after the check was cashed? Real quick, Denali has a great feature here where you can void a check. And you just simply void that paycheck, and then it reverses the entire payroll out for that check only. Then you go and enter it back in under the Enter Payroll to the correct department. And that way, and when you post it, it will post to the correct department. So Denali has a really nice void check option. This is real simple. You just put in the employee number, the check number, save it, and post it. And everything is reversed out for that check. You can do that if you need to void any check for any reason. Denali Payroll also accounts for year-end adjustments. You can make adjustments to the tax calculation if needed, anything like that. So I do apologize. Yes, yes, Daniel, yes, I am a Star Trek fan, as you can tell. All of my employees are crew members from either the Enterprise or the Starship Voyager. All right. So we are going to go ahead and post your answers to the rest of your questions on the website. So be sure to check back on that. All right, and we'll switch back to our presentation here, and hopefully it won't freeze up on me. Okay, so yes, definitely check out the webinars coming up. You can go to cougarmountain.com/monthly webinar series, and it brings up a list of all of our webinars here that we have coming up. Also, be sure to check back on the website for the recorded presentation of this webinar, along with all of your answers to your questions. Again, I do apologize. We had so much to cover today, but I will get all of your answers posted on the website along with this recorded presentation. So check back in a couple of days. It should be there. And with that, I want to thank everyone for showing up today. Be sure to keep an eye out for follow-up emails. We have additional webinars coming up, and also for the access to this recorded presentation and for answers to your questions. So it's been great, guys. Thank you so much for attending. Hope to see you again next week. We're going to have a webinar next week about the new features in the upcoming release of Denali. So hopefully we'll see all of you back for that. And with that, thank you so much and have a great week, everybody.